If you told me 2 years ago that skin tints would be everyone's go-to, even as oily skinned people, I'm not sure I would have believed you. Don't get me wrong, skin tints have definitely been around for a long time now, but the way that they've kind of evolved and taken over as like a top contender for main complexion products is something I didn't predict happening. What used to be people's go-to for barely their coverage has now morphed into long-wearing, non-fading, transfer-proof claims that I'm not entirely sold on just yet. So I tested out all of the brand new skin tints on the market, and I am sharing with you all of my thoughts, wear tests, and demos to help you guys figure out which one is going to be the best fit for you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, hi, I'm Christina. Today we're going to be exploring the 6 newest skin tints on the market. For each one, I'll be sharing the claims, the shades, the selling points of each, as well as some of the demos for each, the wear tests, and some footage from days I was testing them out. And at the end, I'll be sure to share with you guys my personal favorite. Now let's quickly go over my skin type and preferences. I have dehydrated, oily skin that's also acne prone, and my gold standard for skin tints would be the Ciel Tint and Protect Skin Tint, as well as the Fenty Beauty Skin Tint. I like something with pretty high coverage in terms of skin tints that are usually light to medium coverage, and I like something that looks natural on the skin but can still be set down really well. I need something that won't slip and slide or like break up when my oils start to come out throughout the day. Because this seems to be a universal trend with skin tints, I want to note that I'm not too pressed about skincare ingredients in my makeup. I have a full-on skincare routine morning and night, and when it comes to skincare ingredients and makeup, my thoughts on it as of right now are that it's nice to have, but I don't find it necessary, because as long as it doesn't irritate my skin, then I'm good. So first we're going to be going over the Milk Makeup Hydrogrip Gel Tint. This retails for $36, and you can purchase this anywhere you can get Milk makeup. So the main claims of this skin tint are that it's long wearing and it won't fade, crease, or settle into the lines. It is sensitive skin friendly, and it's also fragrance free. There are 15 shades, and I have the shade 7. This one matches my skin tone almost perfectly right now. I think it may be a bit light for me in the summer, but I also have shade 8 that they sent me, so if I need to, I can either switch it out or mix them together. The key skincare ingredients in this one, the first one being triple powered hyaluronic acid, aka triluronic acid. This combines 3 molecular weights of hyaluronic acid to deeply hydrate and support your skin barrier. We have niacinamide, squalane, and aloe water, which are all supposed to help boost moisture and visibly smooth the skin. And lastly, they highlight blue agave extract, which keeps makeup gripped on up to 12 hours to prevent fading and creasing. The texture of this, they claim it has a gel/cream texture, which I would tend to agree with. And the coverage claim is that it is a light to medium coverage. As far as finish goes, they claim that it has a natural dewy finish. And as far as longevity and wear goes, like I said, they claim that it has a 12-hour wear time. And just to share my experience, after 6 hours, I was looking pretty oily, but not the oiliest when it comes to wearing a skin tint. I would be able to leave it as is, or I could do a very light dusting of powder and then be happy with it. This was based on one of the wear tests, and it kind of varied, but for the most part, around 6, 7, 8 hours is when I was starting to see those oils come through. And they recommend this one for all skin types, specifically those that are looking for longevity in their skin tint. Okay, now to share my personal thoughts and experiences on this one. I don't entirely know how to feel about this one. The texture straight out of the tube is super watery and very runny, and it is so thin that whenever you take the cap off, it's almost like spilling out of the spout right there. You can't really hold it this way or else it's gonna like start coming out, you know? So it's very, very thin, which is nice. It could be very nice for some of us. But either way, if you like a thin texture, you'll probably really like this one. So once you apply it onto the face, the coverage actually spreads really far since it's so runny, and you're able to stretch the skin tint to cover more of the face than something that's more of like a thicker cream. And I feel like it's also really easy to blend into the skin without risking any patchiness, since again, that texture is so workable. For me as as far as coverage goes, I would say it's a pretty solid medium coverage. I think it may look higher coverage at first, and what I mean by that is while it's in its fresh state, it's very dewy, which we'll talk about, and I tend to find with products that have a shiny, dewy finish, the light refraction sort of distracts from the imperfections like my hyperpigmentation and acne scarring, and only until I powder do I notice those hyperpigmentation spots or acne scarring more on the skin. There's nothing wrong with this really, it's just something I know and how I come to the conclusion of how much coverage a skin tint has. It's very easy to tell once I like powder down my face. So let's talk about the finish now. It is very, very dewy, which is exactly what they intended and what they claim. So I don't have any issues with that. It was very clear from the jump, but I do kind of think that it's going to be geared towards those that have more normal to dry specific skin. And like I said, I really wasn't sure how to feel about this one. I was super excited when I first received this and I tried it right away. I have a video trying it. I do think this skin tint when untouched looks absolutely beautiful, but where I have a problem with it is when it's set. When I set it down with powder, I can feel the layers of makeup on my skin, at least for the first hour or so before my oils kind of start to come through. And once that happens, then my face goes back to looking pretty dewy, almost like I never set it with powder in the first place. However, it actually surprisingly wears for a very long time. I do think that if you're into that dewy look, or you kind of rely on it if you have more dry or maybe normal leaning skin, then you'll probably love this one. It does definitely stay put, and I think having that gripping technology really helps with that. So with this skin tint, I think I've come to the conclusion that less is honestly more. This is not a foundation replacement product for me. It feels too much like layers of makeup when I use it that way. But to make sure that I was really thorough, I actually tried this skin tint recently without any skin prep, none at all. So that means no moisturizer, no sunscreen, just freshly washed face. And I will say it did stick way better to my skin. I also didn't powder my skin at all just to see if the finish itself looked better, and it definitely did this way. But of course, that begs the question of if this would keep my oils at bay and if the wear would be as long. And in general, I like to use powder. I like to use a lot of blushes and bronzers. So for me, this type of wear isn't within my usual preferences. But I do think the best way for me to use this is honestly gonna be when I'm just looking for a product to even out my skin, but almost give me that fresh skincare look, you know? The skin tint doesn't do well with layers of makeup and liquid bronzers, liquid and cream blushes, or anything like that. It really seems like it's meant for those who like a light layer of makeup or for those days. So while this isn't going to be my everyday skin tint or a filming skin tint when I'm under my lights and stuff, I still want to hold on to it for those lighter makeup days. Now we're moving on to the Laura Mercier Tinted Moisture Blurred Matte with SPF 30. The main claims on this one says it's made of 91% skincare ingredients. It has SPF 30, and it is a sheer to light, oil-free tinted moisturizer that smooths and hydrates while blurring the appearance of pores and fine lines. It says it has a weightless and matte formula that controls oils and minimizes the look of imperfections. They have 20 shades. I have the shade 3N Sand, and currently this is slightly dark for me, but I think it's gonna be perfect in the summertime. For skincare ingredients, they highlight White Rose Wine Complex, which is supposed to balance sebum production immediately and over time. They have Ijitsu Rose, which reduces the appearance of pores over time, and plant-derived cellulose powders and French kaolin to mattify, smooth, and blur the skin. The texture they claim is a cream texture, and as far as coverage, they say a true light to light medium coverage, and the finish, of course, is going to be matte. For me, I would say that this is a natural matte. It doesn't look like a flat matte at all. almost looks like my regular skin without any shiny skincare like sunscreen or moisturizer. And actually I find when I wear this, I need minimal powder. I only have to powder specific oily areas like my T-zone on my skin or like my cheeks. It doesn't look like a heavy layer of makeup, especially because I don't need a lot of powder. As far as longevity and wear, it doesn't claim anything, but personally for me, I find that I get oily after about 7 hours, but it's not terrible. It almost looks like what my face looks like prior to setting with powder. It's doable and it's not at all distracting. Also, it doesn't seem to be slipping and sliding on my skin at this point. I just noticed that my oils have come through significantly. And this claims that it's recommended for oily or combo to normal skin and also porous skin. So getting into my thoughts and experiences with this one, I think that this skin tint really surprised me in terms of coverage and how it wore especially. It starts off very creamy and you can't push the coverage as far as you can with the Milk one, but I don't find that that's an issue because it actually gives a solid medium coverage that I really enjoy. And because this is a matte finish, I feel like what I see is what I get right off the bat when I blend it out. And there are no surprises like hyperpigmentation showing up or my makeup getting cakey because I add too much powder to compensate for the dewy finish of the skin tint because this one starts off matte. I really like the fact that I only have to go in with a light dusting of powder to set my face versus baking like I normally do. Like I said, I can go in with a really light dusting of loose powder and I can opt for finishing powder, but I don't find that it's as necessary for this skin tint. Mainly it would just be to diffuse any blushes or bronzers that I have on top of it. And also the wear time on this is pretty impressive. Again, I feel like it almost immediately sets down, so I know what I'm getting and how to kind of prep the skin. I think that, again, it's a solid medium coverage, but I can amp it up with a higher coverage concealer if I want to, and it never looks heavy. It doesn't end up looking cakey or separating on the face throughout the day. I also feel like it doesn't emphasize under eye creases or the deepness around my nose. I don't typically bring any foundations or skin tints right under the eyes, but sometimes I'll get just a little bit like right around there where it meets the concealer and I can see a little bit of that separation, but I don't see that with this one. Now we are going to move on to the Laura Mercier Tinted Moisturizer Natural Dewy version, and this also has an SPF of 30. This one actually says that it has 88% skincare ingredients, also again SPF 30, and it says that it's a sheer to light tinted moisturizer that smooths and hydrates the skin while reducing the appearance of pores and fine lines. It's humidity proof, meant to keep makeup from melting or smudging for, again, a long lasting wear. They have 20 shades, and again I have shade 3N Sand. My shade is a little dark, but the 2N shade would be a little too light. I think, again, this would be a good match for the summertime. I think the shade range for both is exactly the same. So as far as skincare ingredients for this one, it has hyaluronic acid, which provides long-lasting hydration. It says it has upcycled grape extract with resveratrol, and that is supposed to soften the appearance of fine lines on the skin. And it notes a probiotic complex, which supports a strong skin barrier. The texture claim of this one, also a cream. I would say it's a very thick cream compared to the other skin tints that we're going to be covering on this list. They feel pretty much the same going on this one and the matte one. It's just the finish. The coverage, again, claims to be light but buildable. The finish of this is a natural finish. That's what it says online, but this does say natural dewy, so I don't know. Longevity and wear, this says it has a 16-hour of wear and 24-hour of hydration time. That's a long time. This particular one is recommended for normal, dry, combination, and surprisingly oily skin. Now, my experiences with this one, I felt like this skin tint was very similar in wear time with the blurred version, but I definitely have to powder this way more, obviously, but it is possible to get that same amount of coverage from this one and the matte version. This looks very dewy at first, and it's a pretty thick, creamy texture. Like, it's stiff when it goes onto the skin, and I notice if I'm not careful with completely blending this products out, I do sometimes see little patches of product or pigmentation on areas that aren't covered. I actually did a side-by-side of this one and the Milk Skin Tint, and the coverage on them seems pretty similar. I do find that the Milk one is more dewy, but I will say when it's freshly applied without any additional product on top, you can feel this skin tint more because it's more of that hydrated, thicker texture. I think this would be catered more to those that are looking for hydration from this versus a skin tint that offers a lot of coverage. So I don't hate it, but because I have the blurred version, I opt for this one anyways because I feel like I need to use way less product on top of it, therefore making my whole face of makeup feel lighter in weight. Now, I don't know if I would say that this gives me 16 hours of wear. I haven't technically tested that claim. I definitely don't think it would be the same amount of coverage through that entire 16 hours, but if we're talking it'll keep my face looking more even than before I put it on with a bare face, then yes. But will it look like a fresh face at the end of 16 hours? I don't think so. Moving on to the Makeup Forever Super Boost Skin Tint. The claims for this one says it is hydrating and plumping. It has a buildable sheer to medium coverage that leaves a radiant, healthy skin finish with a non-oily feel. So naturally, reading the non-oily feel claim was really intriguing to me, so I had to include this one. This, I believe, has 18 shades. I have the shade number 6, and this is a great match that I actually think will carry on really well throughout the summer. As far as our highlighted skincare ingredients, we have polyglutamic and hyaluronic acids, and we have grapefruit extract, which is supposed to help promote healthier looking skin by helping improve the skin's quality. That's very vague. I don't know what that means, but that's what they have written. As far as the texture, this claims to have a gel-like formula, which I would agree with. And for their coverage claim, they say that this has a light coverage. And for me, I would argue that this is a light to medium buildable coverage. I actually feel like this is a very buildable formula, which is especially impressive since it has more of that gel consistency to it. It says it's a natural radiant finish. Now, it doesn't have any longevity and wear claims that I have found, but personally for me to share with you guys, I've worn this a couple of times and I've noticed different things each time, which is interesting. So one time after 5 hours, I found that I was slightly oily in my T-zone after a full day of wear, more so than the Laura Mercier matte, but less than the Milk one. Another time that I wore this, after 8 to 9 hours, it faded a bit. And in this B-roll check-in that I did, you can see where I touched my face on my cheek. Definitely some significant shine here, but it's not greasy in my opinion. It kind of just looks like my oils are coming through and like I've worn it all day. But I did want to note that this creases around my nose after freshly applying it onto skin if I'm not careful, specifically whenever I'm done powdering my skin, which I thought was interesting because it specifically only has problem areas around the nose. Everywhere else, it looks pretty flawless in coverage and in wear. So they recommend this one for those with dryness, dullness, and uneven skin tone. All right, so let's now talk about my thoughts and experiences with this one. So I really like this skin tint because I feel like it's a solid replacement for a foundation for me. It gives me, again, a light to medium coverage, but what I like about that is even when it's built up to that medium coverage, it still feels very thin and like I'm wearing very little makeup. The Laura Mercier skin tint feels a lot heavier when built up, the matte one. This one feels like a moisturizer to me. In comparison, the Laura Mercier one does feel a lot heavier than this one when it's built up. This one definitely feels like a regular moisturizer to me. I also appreciate that even though it does have that gel consistency, if you spread it with your fingers a bit and then let it sit there before fully blending it out, you can customize the coverage that way because it gives the pigment a second to dry down a little bit before you blend it. I think that this skin tint wears so well even for my oily skin. I actually bought this on a whim specifically for this video. When I went to Sephora to play with a bunch of new makeup a few weeks back, I thought this was okay, but I didn't really feel inclined to purchase it based on like the swatches. But when I did buy it and the very first time I used it, honestly, I feel like I fell in love with it. The skin tint layers super well with a full face of makeup, which is important for me. And because it's so thin but dries down well, it doesn't feel like you have a wet base that you layer a bunch of other makeup products on top. It has some great flexibility in terms of coverage and use with other products and longevity. I feel like out of all of the skin tints, this one is probably the most versatile one that'll suit more skin types. Of course, this one's going to act and wear differently than a foundation, but in terms of being a product you can use on light makeup days as well as full makeup days and anywhere in between, this one is great for all of it. Now we're talking about a drugstore skin tint. This is the Verse Multi-Serum Skin Tint with SPF 40. So the main claims for this one, we've talked about this one many times already. It is a mineral SPF 40. It says it's lightweight, buildable, with a natural finish that looks and feels like skin and won't make you break out. It also says that it corrects uneven skin tone and protects with that SPF 40. But what I think makes this one stand out in terms of claims is that it won't make you break out. That is very intriguing to me. This one actually comes in 14 shades, and my shade in number 60 or 60, I'm sorry, is a little light for me, but I can still make it work. I'm not entirely sure if that'll be the case in the summertime though, if you are my skin tone twin, my shade twin. So for the skincare ingredient highlights, we have, of course, zinc oxide, which is a sunscreen that protects skin from the UV rays. We also have hyaluronic acid in this one to hydrate the skin and deliver that fresh looking appearance. And there's Kakadu plum extract, which helps to brighten the appearance of dull skin. As far as texture, there is no claim for texture, but personally, I would say that this is a gel texture that is very similar in texture to the Milk one, but not as runny. The coverage claim, this one says it's a light to medium buildable coverage. But for me, I would say that this is on the lighter side of coverage, and I wouldn't say that it's very buildable. I'll get to that when we talk about my experiences with this one. As far as finish, this claims to be a natural second skin finish, and longevity and wear, I'm actually unsure again, but it doesn't seem like this has any claims of being a long wear skin tint. Okay, so my thoughts and experiences. I've spoken about this skin tint a few times now on my channel, and I've tried it a ton of times to see if my feelings about it would change, but unfortunately I'm not a fan of this skin tint. I do think it has a very thin gel texture, but it looks like it sits on top of the skin. When I go to blend this into the skin, it gets very streaky, and no matter how much I blend with a sponge, with a brush, with my fingers, it doesn't ever seem to melt into the skin the same way great foundations or skin tints kind of just melt and mesh into the skin. And the big problem with that is that since it's sitting on top of the skin and it's wet, basically, it doesn't set down well with powder, which is something that I require. No matter how long I wait, the skin tint never really dries down, so it kind of eats up powder or it patches up. And even before I powder, if I try to put anything on top of it like liquid or cream blushes or bronzers, it doesn't sit well because the skin tint is kind of slipping around underneath it. Besides that, I would say this does have medium coverage at first, and the same reason, in my opinion, that the Milk skin tint looks like it has more coverage at first because of that dewy finish. But when powder kind of mats it out a bit, you can see all of my hyperpigmentation and acne scarring, and it's less flattering than the Milk skin tint, since this one, like I said, kind of slips and slides on the face. It almost looks like I didn't even put a skin tint on once I powder it. I keep thinking about it, and I think that this skin tint would actually be best as a last step for skincare versus looking at this as a first step for makeup. Personally, I think you should probably go in with a very small amount of this, so a separate sunscreen will still be necessary. But if you have very dry skin, maybe you're using medications like Accutane or tretinoin or something similar that makes your skin very dry, you may find this very non-irritating and soothing and hydrating. For me though, I don't think it does anything for my needs, and it's not within my preferences when it comes to skin tint. Lastly, we will be talking about the Milani Conceal and Perfect Blur Out Skin Tint Stick. The main claims of this one says it is a soft filtered effect that's ultra blurring with a nourishing formula. It's skincare infused and effortlessly blurs lines, evens tones, and helps hydrate the skin. This one comes with a whopping 25 shades. I have the shade 11 medium tan, and it's actually a very good match for my skin tone. As far as the skincare claims, this one has muru butter, vitamin C rich guava fruit extract, and vitamin E. The texture of this claims to be a cream stick formula, which it is a stick, and I do think it is very creamy. And the coverage claims, it says that it is a light to medium buildable coverage. And for the finish, it says it is ultra blurring and it's a soft filtered effect. And I don't see anything about longevity and wear for this one. So my thoughts and experiences on this one, again, I have talked about this in previous videos, but for me, I find that this is a pretty true light coverage foundation. And the difference with this one when it comes to the light coverage is that I can tell right away because it does have more of that matte finish to it. Once you apply it onto the skin, I do find that it is quite creamy and you can kind of like melt it onto the skin, and you can either buff this in with your fingers or brush. I prefer to do a brush because I feel like I get the most coverage out of it that way. But I do think that this caps out at a light coverage because I can still see my hyperpigmentation and my acne scarring underneath this. If anything, this sort of evens out my skin tone. Now, I have mentioned before that I feel like the powder content in this product is quite high because once you blend it out, once you do that initial blend, it almost instantly dries down and turns into like this powder form, which is really great if you have oily skin. But I find if I want more coverage, I have to layer on pretty high coverage concealers. And I find the best way for me to use this is almost similar to the Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm in the sense that I sort of use that one as a skin tone evening product and then going on top of it with my main complexion foundation or concealer. So the benefits of this one are not necessarily for coverage or, you know, covering up hyperpigmentation and acne scarring. I think it's more so a really great priming tinted primer and to help keep your oils at bay longer throughout the day. Okay, so those were all the specs. Those are all of my experiences and demos and stuff with all of these skin tints. Now, talking about which one is my favorite, and I went between two that I think are very different from each other. So we have the Laura Mercier Blurred Skin Tint, and then we have the Makeup Forever Skin Boost or Super Boost Skin Tint. Like I said, as you could tell, they are quite different from each other, and it really does depend on my mood and how I want to wear my makeup that day. But if I'm thinking about which one I've been reaching for, which one I think is more versatile, which one I think is going to be the one I finish up first, it's going to be the Makeup Forever Super Boost Skin Tint. This one just really blew me out of the water. I really did not expect to like this as much as I did. It's hydrating, but it's not greasy. It gives me a lot of coverage, but it is not cakey. I do have that issue around the nose, but honestly, I can live with that. That happens to me quite often, and it is not the worst. It's just something that I wanted to note for you guys. I do think during the summertime, this one will do me very, very well, but also I feel like during the summertime in the hot, humid weather, I'm not going to want to be wearing any type of makeup that I can feel, and this one is so lightweight and it still powders down really well, so I have the option to either just wear this very lightly or I can powder it down, and both ways are going to look beautiful. I don't really care for the packaging, this little pump thing. I think it would have been fine if you just like squeeze this, honestly. This is fine. I don't really care too much, but what I do like is that I can see the product, I can see how much I've used, and there's no mystery there. I know how much product I have. It's fine. I like it. I was very, very surprised that this one actually won out of all of them for my oily skin, but I do think that it is the most versatile. It wears so beautifully on the skin, and I have just been loving it. I have been really loving this one as well, though. That is my new skin tint roundup. Those are all my reviews for you guys. If I missed anything or if you have any additional questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And I hope you found this video helpful and interesting. I know it took me a very long time to come out with this video, but I wanted to make sure that I was very thorough and I had all of my thoughts for you guys. I will be leaving a video right here for you guys that YouTube thinks that you would be interested in based on what you've been watching recently. But until next time, you guys, take care. Bye.